Hi, I'm JB from Huffy, and today I'm going to be helping you build your 26-inch Holbrook cruiser. First things we're going to do is make sure that we have all the parts on the table and that we're ready to begin. I did leave the plastic insert into the fork on our fork at this time because I'm working on a table that I don't want to scratch. You may want to do the same thing at home. You can also use some extra cardboard or a rug or a piece of carpet if you have that available. So let's go ahead and get started by grabbing some pedals. The pedals are marked left and right, so you'll see an L and an R on each one of those. You'll also see L and R stamped on the metal parts of the pedal, and the left pedal always has extra ribs on the metal part of the pedal as well to make sure that you can distinguish it from the left and right. So we'll go ahead and start with the right pedal. I'm going to move these handlebars out of the way. And the right pedal is righty-tighty, so it is normal orientation that you're probably used to. And we'll start this by hand so that we don't accidentally mess up any threads and accidentally strip out the crank or the pedal. All right, so we got that one. The left one is a little bit different, and it is special because it is lefty-tighty. The sticker on the pedal does indicate which way to turn to tighten it, so make sure that you follow that. If you turn to the right, I promise it will not get tighter. All right, so we got those hand tight. We did provide a wrench in the kit for you, and you're going to be using the 15mm opening on that. If you have a 15mm wrench at home, you can use that as well. You're going to make sure that these get very tight because you do not want them to come off when you're riding the bike. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put the seat and seat post together and insert it into the bike. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open the quick release lever on the seat post, and we're going to tighten it by hand on the thumb nut on the other side and just get it snug in the open position so that it's ready for when we put the seat post in. We're going to go ahead and take the saddle and seat post and put them together. You're going to insert the smaller end of the seat post into the seat from the front, and you're going to insert it so that it stops on the post stop in the seat. Go ahead and pull up on it and get it to a position that looks about right. Once you have that there, you're going to tighten the two 15mm pieces of hardware on the seat. And you're going to do those equally on both sides so that the nut that the bolt that comes out on each side is about the same distance on each side. This may take a little while with the provided tool. If you do have a 15mm socket and ratchet, that will speed up this process for you. All right, so we got that tight. We're going to go ahead and insert the seat post into the seat tube on the bike and slide it to about where we think we're going to need it, and then close the quick release. We're going to check to see if there's any wiggle and align the seat. If the seat post is not moving, but the seat is moving left or right, you just need to tighten the 15mm nuts a little bit more. If the seat post is moving, you may need to open the quick release again and give it another spin on the thumb nut and reclose the quick release lever and try again. A tight quick release is important because you don't want the seat post to go up and down when you're riding or side to side when you're riding, because that's not safe. You do want to make sure that there is some resistance when closing that lever so that it stays in place. All right, now that we're all set there, we're going to move to the front fender on the bike. So you'll go ahead and pull that out. You'll notice that there are two slots cut into the mounting hardware area of the fender. And what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and slide the fender through the front of the bike. And then the hardware is already in the bike. You do not need to take it out. Just line it up and hook the fender into place. You may need to bend these tabs in just a little bit in order to do so. They go on the outside of the head tube. And once that's in place, you can go ahead and lightly tighten them into place. You can use the Phillips head attachment on one side while holding the 10mm nut in place. And just get it started to where it's a little snug. Before you get it tightened down all the way though, you do want to go ahead and attach the fender at the bottom. You're going to remove the Phillips head hardware on the back of the fork and insert the fender arms onto the outside of the fork and put the hardware through. And get those finger tight. For fender alignment, you want to go ahead and pull back as much as you can on the rear of the fender and then tighten the hardware in place at the bottom of the fork. Once that's tight, you can then tighten the top of the fender into place. If you find that you need to adjust these later on, you can always loosen them and move them as needed. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put the handlebars on the bike. I'm going to grab those here. You're going to orientate the handlebars so that the stem is facing forward. You're going to make sure that the wedge is a little loose. If you need to, you can use the Allen wrench provided to you to loosen that up a little bit. And you're going to go ahead and put this in. You will see a minimum mark on the stem, and you want to make sure that you insert the stem into the head tube at least that far. We're going to go ahead and snug that up just a little bit. To kind of hold that in place. Now you do have a cup holder accessory on your handlebars, and we'll move that a little bit so that we can move it into a better place, and then we'll also come back to tighten the front reflector up. So I will go ahead and loosen this just a little. Yours may be loose already. And we will scoot that down the handlebar just a little. Okay. The next step is we're going to take a 15mm and loosen the handlebar clamp. And then rotate the handlebars into a position where they are centered and at a good riding position. When the bike is in this position, I usually angle them back just a little bit so that they're not completely straight up, but back. Make sure that the bevel is in the middle, and then tighten. You can always adjust these to your preference. at any time by just loosening this clamp up and moving them and then tightening it again. All right. We can go ahead and put the reflector in place. You want it facing forward so that it can reflect light from headlights or street lamps. It's a Phillips head screw on the top. Just tighten it down. And then the cup holder uses the Allen wrench, and you can put it close to the bottom, or you can have the cup holder up at the top by your hand as well. It's totally your preference. I typically put them down closer to the stem. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add the front basket. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put our basket together. So you did receive a lot of hardware, and it can be a little bit confusing, so we laid it out the way it comes. You're going to use 2 washers from this set on this part over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take our Fender strut and lay it across this piece here. This bar is going to go in the indentation right there. We're going to take our Phillips head screws and we're going to insert them into the bottom of the basket, the 2 slots down there where they go. You can do this one at a time if need be, whatever makes you more comfortable. Then we're going to take the strut and the mounting plate and go ahead and get them started. If you have a Phillips head screwdriver, now is a great time to use it. If you don't, the included hardware toolkit that we have does have a Phillips head screw on one of the ends of the tool. So we're going to go ahead and get those started through here. You don't need to get it too tight right off the bat. Now you're going to take the washers and put those on. And then the nuts. Just get those hands started there. All right, so we got those there. So there are in the included tool, there is a slot there for this hardware. So you'll go ahead and use that to put these on. All right, so once you get the nuts in place on the bottom of the bracket, you can go ahead and turn it up. And now we're going to show the orientation of the hardware for when you add the bike to, or add the basket to the bike. You're going to go ahead and take one of the washers, put it on the Phillips head screw. It will go through the basket into the bracket on the bicycle, and then after the bracket on the bicycle, you will then add another washer and then the nylock nut and tighten that down. You'll do that on this side as well, and that's how you would attach the basket. To start, I'm going to go ahead and take the Phillips head screws out of the fork, and these are the ones in the front of the fork. And then orientate the basket so that the mounting strut is on the outside of those screws, or where those screws go rather, and then just put them in by hand. And get them finger tight. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to move the basket to where it is closer to the handlebar and go ahead and mount the hardware. So you're going to take the Phillips head screw, put a washer on it, slide it from the basket inside through the bracket. And then we will add a washer to the back side, and then one of the nylock nuts. I'm going to repeat this on the other side as well. Once you have straightened the basket, got everything centered, you can tighten it into place. I recommend holding the nylock nut in place on the back and then tightening with the Phillips head screwdriver from the inside of the basket. As a reminder, the weight limit on the basket is 10 pounds, so you shouldn't put anything in there that is oversized or doesn't fit in the basket either. All right, now that should be all snug. We're just going to make sure that everything is tight that we've been working on. Make sure that everything is good. We're going to tighten the bottom Phillips head screw hardware for the basket. Our last step is going to be to put the front tire on. We're going to orient the tread on the tire the same way that it is on the back of the bike. So you'll want to check and see which direction the tread is going, and then repeat that on the front. The 15mm nuts on the axle you want to bring out as far as you can. You shouldn't have to take them completely off the axles. And then take the dropout washers and move them to the outside as well. And then lifting the front of the bike, go ahead and remove that plastic spacer if you haven't already. And then put the tire and wheel through the dropout. Make sure that everything is where it needs to be. And then move the dropout washer so that the hook on the washer goes in the hole. So I'm actually going to remove this hardware to move it around. And then hand tighten as much as possible. If you have someone else around, it might be a good idea to have them help you out holding the bike up. If you are working by yourself, you can extend the kickstand on the bike and lean it over at this time. Just be warned that the kickstand may damage a table if you're working on a delicate surface. So we're tightening this by hand. We're also making sure that the wheel and tire is in the center of the fork as much as possible. Just kind of checking as we go to make sure that if we need to make any adjustments that we can. And then we're going to tighten little by little on each side. With our 15mm wrench. Checking again to make sure that the wheel and tire are centered in the front. Okay, looks like we're all set there. I want to check the fender to make sure that it's not touching the tire or that it's too close. I'm going to go ahead and adjust our front fender just a little bit. I'm going to do that by holding the 10mm on the back and loosening the Phillips head screw. And I'm going to raise this fender just a little bit so it has some clearance. Check to make sure my clearance is pretty close to equal around, and then tighten that into place. You may need someone else to hold the fender in place while you're tightening it. And just check to make sure that the alignment is correct and the fender is lined up on the center of the tire. If the fender is off to the left or right in the rear, you can pull on the fender stays a little bit and adjust them by pulling on them. So it looks like we've come pretty close to finishing our assembly of our Huffy Holbrook cruiser. One thing you do want to check is to make sure that the tires do have air in them. These tires should be inflated to the recommended PSI on the tire. In this case, the PSI is 40 PSI. So you want to make sure that you inflate them to 40. That will provide the best ride for you and good tire wear. You'll also want to make sure that everything is tight. You can adjust the handlebars and seat to your preference, making sure that everything is where it needs to be. If you are missing anything or if there is anything broken, you can always refer to the owner's manual. The owner's manual does have a parts list in it. It has detailed instructions on how to assemble your bicycle as well, just in case there's something that you need a little bit more clarification on that we didn't cover today. There is our contact information on the back of the manual as well. Our website is huffybikes.com/contact, and our 1-800 number is 1-800-872-2453. And the only thing you need to do now is make sure that you grab a helmet so that you can go out and have some fun. Once again, this is JB from Huffy. Hope this helps. Have a great day.